Shalom. This week we are reading Parshat Korach, the fifth Torah portion in the book of Bamidbar, Numbers. And here in the book of Numbers, we've been learning all about this enigmatic, hard-to-understand generation known as the generation of the desert. They're also known as the generation of knowledge. They are the ones who witnessed God's miracles in Egypt and experienced the Exodus, the splitting of the sea. They stood at Mount Sinai and witnessed the absolute oneness of God. They heard his voice from heaven, and they received the Torah. At the dedication of the tabernacle, they witnessed fire descend from heaven onto the altar, and the resting of the Shekhinah among the people. They ate the manna, a spiritual sustenance, drank water from Miriam's miraculous well, and they were surrounded by clouds of glory. They lived an exalted and sublime life of inimitable connection to God. And they were truly righteous, and they were also truly human, which is precisely why God gave them the Torah and didn't leave it in heaven with the angels, because the Torah is designed to help man reach his full potential. And because they were truly human, they were also truly flawed. Not that there's anything wrong with that, up to a point. And last week, as we learned in Parashat Shalach, they reached that point, as it were, Hashem's breaking point, the point of no return. After testing Hashem 10 times, the grievous incident of the spies sealed the fate of this remarkable generation, and God decreed that all males above the age of 20 would not enter into the land, but would die in the desert as a result of the slander that was spoken about the land of Israel. This week, we learn about the rebellion of Korach. It's an unsettling story, compelling, disquieting, even alarming, especially their punishment. According to most opinions, the order of these two sections, the portion of Korach following that of Shalach, is the order in which the events took place. It's a question because, as we have learned many times, there's a principle in Torah study informing us that there is not necessarily a chronological order in the events described in the Torah, since it's not a history book but a divine manual for living, and its purpose is not to teach history. But the important source, Seder Olam, states that indeed this is the chronological order of the events. The occurrence of the sin of Korach transpired immediately after the sin of the spies. I, for one, am fascinated by the relationship of these events, the juxtaposition of the two major sins of the children of Israel in the desert. When it came to the debacle of the spies, Lashon Hara, their malicious tale-bearing, well, the majority of the nation was swept up in that evil. And as we've said, ultimately it was the cause of the Israelites being held back from entering the land, the cause of their wandering for 40 years in the wilderness. And while the second sin, the uprising of Korach and his band, which we learn about in this week's Torah portion, only involved the participation of a small group of the nation, potentially that rebellion could have threatened the entire process of Torah transmission, which indeed, as we shall see, was the true purpose of the revolt. There's clearly a common foundation between the two sins, that of the spies and that of Korach, namely lack of emunah, lack of faith in Hashem, and rebelling against God and Moshe. The main element of the sin of the spies was rebellion against Hashem, for they were coming against the goal that Hashem had explicitly established himself for them, entering into the land of Canaan. In the book of Exodus, though, at the splitting of the sea, chapter 14, we read the verse, "And Israel saw the great hand which Hashem had used upon the Egyptians, and the people feared Hashem, and they believed in Hashem and in Moshe, his servant." And in Exodus 19:9, in Parshat Yitro, we learn the verse, "And Hashem said to Moshe, Behold, I'm coming to you in the thickness of the cloud, in order that the people hear when I speak to you, and they will also believe in you forever." There is a connection which God himself establishes between himself and Moshe. It's not a question of worship. Moshe is not a god. It's a question of authority and trust, upon which Torah education rests. It's not for nothing that the Torah is referred to as the Torat Moshe, the Torah of Moshe, and that is precisely what Korach sought to undermine. So what is this great rebellion against Moshe really all about? And was it only against Moshe? Was it personal? Was there more to it? So like we said, the revolt of Korach was the last straw in a series of incidents of flawed behavior of the generation that came out of Egypt. But this rebellion is different than all the various backslidings that preceded it. Until now, the causes of conflict had been, for example, lack of bread and water, craving for meat, the burden of traveling, fear or lack of confidence or lack of faith in Hashem. In all those instances, the insurgency began in the lower ranks of the people, kind of like on the outer edges of society, and slowly swept up others. But Korach's dispute came about as a result of jealousy and a desire to seek and receive honor. And the antagonist came from the very heart of society, from the camp of Levi, and 250 of the most respectable of the nation were swept up with the passion of the revolt. As their verse describes them, they were leaders of the assembly, they were called for the meeting, they were men of renown. Korach was a rabble-rouser. In fact, the Midrash tells us that he spent the entire night before his confrontation with Moshe passing through the whole camp on the campaign trail, visiting with all the tribes and telling them, I'm not doing this for myself, I'm doing it for you. So give me your support like any good politician. He was a rabble-rouser, but he was no rabble. He was Moshe's family. That's gotta hurt. He was no stranger, no outsider. In fact, he's Moshe's cousin. Our sages teach us that Korach was a great man, a great scholar, very wise. And get this, he had a very important job. He was no less than one of the people entrusted with the task of carrying the Ark of the Covenant. And, oh, that'd be hurt in the deepest way. This is crazy. Remember back in Exodus 32, verse 26, in the aftermath of the sin of the golden calf, Moshe stood at the gateway of the camp and he said, whoever is for Hashem, join me. And all the Levites gathered around him and they killed all those who were worshiping the golden calf. Korach was one of those who responded to Moshe's call, Mi Lashem Elai, who is to Hashem, join me, together with the other Levites, the call of whoever's for Hashem, join me. Regarding all those other earlier incidents of backsliding of this generation, until Korach came along, when there were complaints, when people complained, they were complaining against Hashem, but here was something new and different. Korach and his band came and said, oh, we're all about Hashem, and we're all in favor of Him, and in favor of the Torah, and in favor of the tabernacle, and in favor of the divine service. The problem they say, Moshe added details on his own, and that's what we're against. Like many other people today as well, they say that Moshe is making up his own Torah. This is the grave singularity of Korach's sin, also a sin whose flavor and essence is repeated in our time. His intention is to sow the seeds of discord and to unravel and deconstruct the foundation of how the Torah is given over from generation to generation. Korach's rebellion against Moshe is ultimately against the Torah itself. On the surface, the rebellion manifested itself as being against the appointments and division of tasks in the divine service that were made within the family of Moshe according to the instructions of God, such as Moshe's divinely instructed appointment of the priesthood to Aaron, his brother, and the appointment of the family of Levi to carry out certain important tasks. Although, again, as we mentioned, Korach himself carried the ark. Korach didn't accept this hierarchy, but his real complaint was with God. He maintained, his claim was that the purpose of man's creation had already been achieved, for all the congregation are all holy and Hashem is in their midst. Why do you raise yourselves above the congregation of Hashem? Chapter 16 and verse 3. And therefore, the hierarchy designated by Moshe is not necessary. Therefore, he concluded that these appointments were just strong-arm tactics of Moshe, who gave out jobs as he pleased. But Korach is really implying a serious doubt as to if Moshe's leadership was of his own doing or designed by Hashem. In this light, Rashi explains Korach's claim. Okay, Moshe, you made yourself a king, but if you made yourself a king, you didn't have to make your brother the priest. You're not the only ones who heard the statement, I am Hashem your God at Mount Sinai. We all heard it. Moshe heard what Korach said, and he understands where he's leading. He understands where they're going with this, and thus his reaction. Moshe heard and fell on his face. Verse 4, chapter 16. Why? Not for himself. Moshe is not concerned about himself or his own honor, but for Hashem, because he saw that Korach's intention, beneath his veneer of activism for equality, his intention was to uproot the Torah from Israel. He also seduced members of the tribe of Reuven, Datan and Abiram, the sons of Eliav and On ben Pelet, to join his rebellion with a claim that Moshe did not show adequate respect to the tribe which was the eldest of the tribes. So what was Moshe's response? When he saw their obstinacy, he attempted to motivate them to do teshuvah, repentance, and recant their positions. And thus Moshe said to them, tomorrow morning, take for yourselves fire pans, Korach and his congregation, and put fire in them, and place incense upon them before Hashem, and it shall be that the man whom Hashem shall choose, he is the one who is holy. Moshe instructed that each of these 250 heads of the Sanhedrin that Korach got into his group should bring a fire pan and place upon it incense for offering, and the way that Hashem would clarify the issue is by choosing the one who shall offer it. And in spite of their tremendous audacity, Moshe, in his humility, sends after Datan and Aviram to try and make peace. And they responded, we will not go up. Is it a trifle matter that you brought us out of a land flowing with milk and honey, meaning Egypt, to kill us in the desert, and now you also want to rule over us? That answer bespeaks more than a complete lack of faith in Moshe. Datan and Aviram are actually saying that Moshe has a goal of keeping the people in the desert, and the goal is in order to kill them in stages in the desert. And the fact is that many perished at the sin of the golden calf, and many at the incident of the complainers. So Korach and his band rose to Moshe's challenge. And when the moment of the test came, Moshe tells Aaron Hashem's instructions that he should bring his fire pan with incense like the other 250 men in order for it to be revealed to all who Hashem chooses. Moshe warns them all that actually they are rebelling against Hashem, and therefore Korach and his men will descend to the pit alive, and the others will die. And it was. When he finished speaking all these things, that the ground split under them, and fire came forth from Hashem and consumed the 250 men who offered the incense. So, you're familiar with this concept called midah keneged midah, measure for measure? It's how God runs the world. The famed Kli Yakar commentary explains that their punishment was measure for measure, because we learn in chapters of the Fathers, Pirkei Avot, chapter 3 and Mishnah 2, that without proper governance and the reverence that proper governance generates, quote, a man would swallow his fellow man alive. So since they sought to undermine Moshe's leadership, they merited the punishment of being swallowed up alive. I want to talk more about this strange punishment later. Their sin was a calculated, direct rebellion against Hashem. They knew that Moshe was true, but the arrogance of their hearts led them astray. Korach's claim against Moshe, his claim is a lot more far-reaching and with graver implications than any argument or rebellion that took place until now. He and his group, they're not arguing over any practical issue, but on a matter of principle, of a theological matter. Korach is saying that Moshe is adding things on his own. This isn't just a personal issue around the subject of Moshe, but it's about the way in which Hashem himself chose to reveal himself and speak to the people. And Moshe consistently sees himself as nothing but a vessel. Their problem is with Hashem. Their problem is with Hashem himself. And thus the Midrash teaches that, said Moshe before the Holy One, blessed be he, Master of the universe, they made fun of my brother and myself, and I remained silent. But when it comes to the degradation of the Torah, I will not remain silent. And Korach was a cynical manipulator. He used Moshe's own words against him and tried to trip him up. They said, it's too much for you. The entire congregation is holy, and Hashem is in their midst. So why do you raise yourselves up against the congregation of Hashem? Chapter 16 and verse 3. And if you recall, during the incident of the prophecy of Eldad and Medad in Parshat Bahalotcha, Moshe said practically the same thing to Yoshua, saying, if only the whole nation of God were prophets, that Hashem should place his spirit upon them. Chapter 11 of Numbers, verse 29. So Korach primarily expressed rebellion against Moshe, but he was launching an attack against the foundation of the transmittance of Torah. His rebellion was against Hashem. Moshe said to the congregation of Korach, do this, take for yourselves fire pans, Korach and all his congregation, and place upon them fire, and place upon it incense before Hashem tomorrow, and it shall be that the man whom Hashem will choose is the Holy One. It is too much for you, sons of Levi. This was Moshe's own suggestion. It was inspired by Hashem. It was divine inspiration. Moshe wanted to use the ketoret, the incense, more than any other aspect of the service to make this determination, because he already saw, regarding Nadav and Avihu, that it was when they brought unauthorized incense before Hashem that they were burned. And the comparison that Moshe is making here to the act of Nadav and Avihu is very clear. Regarding their action, the Torah states, Leviticus chapter 10 and verse 1, and the sons of Aaron, Nadav and Avihu, each man took his fire pan and placed in them fire and placed upon them incense, and they brought before Hashem a strange fire which he did not command them. here as well. Moshe suggests that Korach and his people take fire pans and put fire in them, place incense upon them before Hashem. Regarding the incident of Nadav and Avihu, God said, I will be sanctified among those who are close to me. And here, use of the incense is intended to prove who is the holy. But Korach and his people's response is silence. They don't utter a word in response to what Moshe says, as if what he said had no effect on them. This silence revealed the extent of their lack of faith in Moshe and in his divine mission. But moreover, it also revealed their doubts about Hashem's orchestration of the world and about Hashem himself. As our sages state, Korach started his career as a great and righteous Torah scholar, but ultimately ended up even denying the divinity of the Torah and even denying that God created the world. And why? All in order to maintain his position. How about that phenomena, and the earth opened up its mouth? What's with the earth's mouth? You know, the Midrash even expounds upon this and says, the earth opened up many mouths. It came like a funnel. And wherever one of Korach's group was, let's say on the other side of the camp, the other side of town, he would roll down to one of those openings. And even if a member of his group had left clothes at the cleaners to be cleaned, they would also roll from there, leave the establishment and come and be swallowed up together with them. And even if someone lent an object to someone else, it would come with them. So there would be no trace or remainder whatsoever of Korach and his group. And this teaching about the earth's mouth, it's expounded upon in chapter 5, Mishnah 6 of Pirkei Avot, the chapters of the fathers. There's a very, very elusive teaching there. It tells us 10 things were created Bein Hashmashot, at twilight of Shabbat Eve. And these are the 10 things that were created then, as it were, after the time that Hashem ceased from the creative process. In the fleeting time between daylight and night, called twilight, Hashem created 10 things, and these are them. The mouth of the earth, which swallowed Korach, the mouth of Miriam's well, the mouth of Bilam's donkey, the rainbow, the manna, the staff of Moshe, the shamir, which is a small snail that was used to engrave the names on the stones of the breastplate of the high priest, the writing and the inscription and the tablets of the 10 Commandments. Some say also the burial place of Moshe and the ram of our father Abraham. Some say also the spirits of destruction as well as the original tongs, for tongs are made with tongs. What does any of this mean, you might be wondering? There is so much here. We don't have time today. This is an entirely amazing and beautiful teaching. Something special about these things, that they were created at twilight and what they represent. And not just at twilight, not just any day, but the twilight of Friday Eve, of the Sabbath Eve, the twilight between the ordinary and the holy. There's something shared by all of these things. Perhaps one time we'll expound upon this, but in the meantime, our subject is the mouth of the earth. The earth represents stability, stability that a person can count on, like the expression rock solid or you're on solid ground. Creation is clear and firm, established beyond any doubt. The earth under our feet, about which there's no doubt. But at twilight, the elusive time of man's uncertainty, the phenomena of the mouth of the earth was introduced. Even in the most solid and stable of things, there's an opening to instability. Korach mixed up everything by doubting Moshe and by doubting Hashem. So he caused the most fixed and common stability to devour him. Or rather, metaphorically, he was devoured, he was eaten alive by his own penchant for doubt, for disbelief, and self-aggrandizement. Our sages teach, perhaps metaphorically, perhaps whimsically, perhaps not, that he's still down there, alive and kicking. As the verse tells us, he went down alive. And he's declaring all the time, Moshe and his Torah are true, and I am wrong. But too little, too late. The time to declare our allegiance to Hashem is now, in this world, before we get swallowed up like Korach by our own self-serving arrogance.